Hey, my hair is wet. That's how you know I'm still bathing. Isn't that nice? So one of the struggles that I have with being mentally ill online, uh, is that, you know, it does have an effect on me where, like, imagine firstly, I mostly go on YouTube. I mostly go on there more than any other website or social media platform. And I consider YouTube kind of a social media platform, but it's just got different dynamics than other ones. It's like kind of non-traditional because it's mostly videos based. But I mean, that the same can be said for TikTok, and that one's certainly a social media platform. It's just like shorter content, so like, it just depends on how you look at it. But anyway, that's the place where I go the most. So like imagine it like a slot machine. Like you go you go on YouTube and it's like randomly generated what's gonna pop up in your feed. But it's not completely random because with YouTube obviously it's somewhat based on, pre-established preferences, channels that you're subscribed to, channels that you frequent. I assume it probably also has a connection to like the things you Google. I mean look, I don't actually know how it works, but you know, things you search in the search bar, maybe it's connected to your search results as well. I don't know. I don't actually know. But the point is, like, you know, it does have a triggering effect on my mental health where, um, if I'm exposed to content that, has like, um, there's like a pattern. I mean, it's designed that way. The YouTube algorithm and many algorithms on the internet that cater to you do that. They cater to you. They cater to things that you're interested in, and you know, with me, it's triggering with my psychosis. I still get the feeling like there's an entity controlling the results and they have specific motivations, but they're contradictory. Like at times I feel like the results are trying to comfort me. If I'm recommended songs that have positive messages or if they're love songs, then I feel like, I'm safe and that whatever entity is controlling the platform wants me to feel safe. And then other times, the search results will feel a lot more um like nefarious if it's like videos where they're targeting uh neurodivergent people or they're targeting queer people or a lot of like right-wing content. I'll look at it and think this is like there's actual people out to get me. And it's funny because like on some level that instinct is true. I mean, you know there are people that are against the they're against my beliefs and my existence and things like that. So, part of it feels true. But then another part of it, it's like I'll literally get it in my head that someone put them there to upset me. Like someone is controlling the slot machine, so to speak. Like a conscious being controlling the results, targeting them at me in particular. I don't have that thought that I'm being watched by my own camera. That one's good. Like I and I am able to fight back these thoughts and these suspicions because obviously this has happened before where I've thought that people were spying on me and communicating with me through the internet, and I would and I stopped believing that after a while. And in truth, like I am there is a sense of reality within myself where I think about the logistics of how it could actually be done, and B, why. Like what would the end goal be? Why would they want to target me like this? There's no particular reason. I'm not an extraordinary individual. There's nothing about my life that is of interest to anybody in power. I mean, on a certain level there is, because of the fact that like, trans people are being targeted in today's political climate. And my recent episode did coincide with the election of Donald Trump, so, but nevertheless, I mean, I just don't think it's likely that anyone is actually targeting me. Like it's not likely. And how they would actually go about it, What methods would they use? These are things I fixate on, and it's not good. And then there's also the matter of like, why are the results sometimes positive and comforting and make me feel safe, and they're validating as well, because sometimes I'll get results that are pro trans and um pro neurodivergent, in the sense of like, you have a place on this earth. Like, pro neurodivergent, what I mean by that is just like, people who have neurodivergent minds and lives and selves, they deserve to be on the earth. Here's what you can do to, you know uh here's some tips for how to go about your life, so videos like that, which would obviously be of benefit to me, or just anything like enjoyable that relates to my interests as well. There's that. Like, if I get a video recommended to me where it's like, here's all this cool shit from these bands that you like, because y'all know I love my bands. You know my little bands that I like, my little musics that I enjoy. If I get a video where it's like, here's a clip compilation of Pink Floyd, here's the Ramones, here's the Beatles, dude, this some fucking Green Day, you know what I mean? Come on, you know? Like, then I'm like, oh yeah, the algorithm gods are on my side. Like, you know how people often talk about like the whims of the algorithm gods, this unfathomable kind of process. Like, I think about it in a literal way like that sometimes. I think about it like there's literally entities controlling it that I can't fathom, but I don't really think of them like gods. I do think of them like living people, living human beings, and I wonder about like, what are they like? What are their politics? What are their opinions of me? Is this all just to test me? Is it just to test me? But what's the test? What outcome are they trying to get? Are what's this experiment? I think about it often in terms of an experiment. But I'm aware of like the way experiments are conducted, and it doesn't actually seem to resemble one. It's like there's nothing that I can imagine would actually motivate people to do this to me. So that's how I kind of pull myself out of it, is by thinking like, why would anyone want to do that to me? Then, I mean, yeah, like, it's a shame, because like, you can tell there's some reasons to be suspicious of others in this world, when people do literally have hateful beliefs towards you, but it's to this extent where I'm paranoid. And I know you're probably thinking, well, Sydney, why don't you just get off the internet? That makes sense, but you see, I have those same worries that people don't trust me or don't respect me in the real world as well. Like, I'm extremely afraid of being rejected by my peers. I'm afraid of the consequences of like anything. Uncertainty is very worrying to me. Just going about my life, getting out of this routine of just isolating myself. I feel an extreme motivation to isolate myself because I'm fearful of people around me. Um, and so the internet, it can be like a safe haven, but it's only a safe haven so long as I can maintain the understanding that I'm not being, experimented on and fucked with by unseen humans, you know? It's really scary. Like I've said before, I've mentioned that happening to me before, and then I've said that it went away. And it goes away a little bit, but not completely. Like, you don't know what it's like to kind of have this. I mean, maybe you do, maybe you don't, maybe you do. I literally don't know who's watching this, but let's say you don't know what it's like to just be consumed by an idea that at once seems true and at another point seems completely false. That's the reality of dealing with, like, mental illness, and it's really fucking spooky. You just at once think this is certainly the case, and it consumes your perception, takes over your life and your time and your energy and your patience and your functionality. And then you can kind of snap out of it, and then it comes back. Um, and when you deal with that so much, it does make you want to avoid people. So like, when you are, dealing with mental illness, you still want to have something to do with your time. And the internet is appealing in that way because, like, I mean, it is kind of a social environment, you know? I have friends on here that I love, and I have lots of things to learn about on the internet. That's one thing. It's very interesting, you know? Once you stop looking at things that trigger you or whatever, then, you know, there's lots of enjoyable things. But the problem is I don't always know what's going to trigger me. Like, it's kind of unpredictable. Um, Things just seem like they correlate. For a moment, things will seem like they correlate, and everything seems like there's a sign, and everything's falling into place, and like, yeah. And then, like, you know, when I actually think about it, these are just the mechanisms that make the internet work, you know? It's just a system that sort of curates things that you're interested in. So if you keep searching up various things that you're interested in, and then you get results that seem like they're speaking to you, that's how it's supposed to be. That's the internet. That's how it works. It's supposed to, like, curate things for you and have advertisement targeted at you so that they can get your money and things like that. Mind you, I have ad block most of the time, but, you know, with ad block sometimes like you have to turn it off if you want to go on certain websites, and with YouTube sometimes like little advertisements slip through the cracks, because I don't know if you guys knew this, but with ad block there there are what's it called, there's yeah, there's like they've been going back and forth, like sometimes YouTube will build a little thing in its code. It'll like add something to the code, I guess. What, you know, the people who run YouTube will add something to the code where like suddenly ad block is blocked by YouTube. But then ad block will go back and do something to their code that makes it so that they work on YouTube again, and they just keep going back and forth, and it's like kind of funny. So that's been going on for a couple years now, I think, and you know, when I use ad block on YouTube, it's often where like I'll get a little clip of an ad and then it'll skip it, and sometimes ads still get through the cracks. But then, you know, yeah, it just goes like that, and it's kind of unpredictable. But if you're dealing with like psychotic beliefs where you think that the targeted advertisements are like really targeted, like there's someone who's doing this with ulterior motives to torture you. That's what it's like. It's like I'll get things come up in my search results or whatever, or my YouTube feed, and I'll just think, someone put this here to communicate an idea to me. Perhaps they sometimes I think that like the people running it think of me as a threat. Like they think of me as a threat to my community. That's one thing that I've assumed, is that whoever runs the systems that are targeting me, so to speak, they assume that I'm a threat to my community. So when I say my community, I mean my community online, such as, um, you know, my friends, in, you know, that visit my channel regularly, and the people who I communicate regularly with on Discord. Those are people that you know, we're fairly close, and like I assume that whoever is targeting me thinks that I'm a threat to them, my friends, you know? And that's why they're investigating me. And that maybe one day this will result in, like, me getting arrested, you know? So that's why I worry a lot about that. Because part of me thinks there will be, like, terrible consequences for this. Like, extreme fear comes over me. Like, my whole body feels like cold, spine chilling, sick terror, like fight or flight, you know? Um, and I'm not always the best influence on my friends. I'll say that, because y'all know that I've got my ways, my careless, reckless ways. But I don't really encourage other people to do that. They kind of choose to do that on their own. And I'm aware of how like social patterns arise, you know. But in all honesty, when people talk about doing various substances, for example, I often try to, you know, encourage moderation and you know, talk about the consequences of engaging in unsafe behaviors with substances, you know. This is something I do often in private, but sometimes I do this on the channel as well. I'm pretty sure, you know. I've talked about things like that before. So, you know, basically encouraging harm reduction because I believe in that, even though it's something I haven't always been great at, you know. Um, Certainly not. But uh, yeah. So I don't really feel motivated to get off of the internet when like there's not much else to do with my life, you know? And I don't have the motivation to do a lot of activities that I once enjoyed because, you know, in my experience, like, without the help of medications now, like, I'm scared of a lot of things, and things that are easy feel kind of stupid and mundane or just not enjoyable. I have to kind of reteach myself how to live, you know? Um, I had struggled with my mental health for years. There have been signs before. When I look back, I see that there were signs, but I couldn't really explain it. It's like just a personal thing, you know. Um, and it's kind of sad, but it's not like my life has been pure misery. There is hope. I want to emphasize that there's hope and there's lots of happy things that make me feel good, but it's not an easy time for me at the moment because I'm incredibly worried about um getting better. Um and I don't bring up my delusions of uh persecution because I don't want to worry my family. Like they're vulnerable too. And if you tell people all these dangerous thoughts you're having, then my sister, I've told her before, and I guess, I mean, my dad probably knows, they can tell when I'm going through something, but yeah, like, I keep it to myself quite a bit, and, that's tough, you know? So, that's another thing. Yeah, like, I'm fighting back the sort of vague impression that I'm being targeted by unseen, uh, uh, people. Perhaps they are. I can't really imagine what kind of entity they would be. Like if I could give a specific thing, like do they work for Google? Because that was something I wondered in the past. Google is spying on me, but like yeah, like it's just sort of vague impression. Like maybe Google, or maybe it's the military, or maybe it's the government, or whatever, the police. Like someone who has control over some thing, but it's not very specific, you know? I can't really get anything specific like that. It's just chaos, you know? Very confusing. Um, yeah.